Hey, what's up guys and gals? My name is Rick9G. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about The Lucy Show. More specifically about the departure of Vivian Vance from that show. Now I do want to highlight the difference between I Love Lucy, the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour, The Lucy Show, and Here's Lucy. I'll get into it just in a little bit. If you're a fan of classic TV shows, don't forget to browse my channel and to subscribe because I have over 1,400 videos that I think you will absolutely love. Now there's so much to talk about here, but before I get into the nitty-gritty, I do want to give a bit of background. Now I Love Lucy was the premiere show, the flagship work, in my opinion, and to many Lucy fans as well, of Lucille Ball and her work on television. Of course, the show ran from 1951 all the way to 57. Then there were 13 episodes of the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour as well, with Desi, Bill Frawley, Vivian Vance, and Lucy. However, Desi and Bill Frawley moved on for many different reasons, which I won't talk about here, and Lucy began The Lucy Show along with Vivian Vance between 1962 and 1968. Oddly enough, it also had 6 seasons. Then they moved on to Here's Lucy with another 6 seasons, of course, from 68 to 74. Now, going back to The Lucy Show, she had her guest star, or that is co-star, that is Vivian Bagley, played by the amazing Vivian Vance. Now, if you ask me, there is nothing that touches the hem of I Love Lucy. Now, The Lucy Show is great. It has great moments. It kind of falls short if you're comparing it in greatness to I Love Lucy, as well as Here's Lucy, because a lot of the elements that were present in I Love Lucy are gone. But one of the major presents that were still there is Vivian Vance, and she was an instrumental part of the show beginning in the first couple seasons. But then she actually left around the first few seasons of the show. I'll get into that in just a little bit for many different reasons, a lot of speculation on why she did that, and people said that after that the show suffered greatly and it ultimately led to the demise of the show. In my argument, I would say that The Lucy Show was in fact 2 different shows. I would say it was the Vivian Vance era, and then it blended into the Mr. Mooney area, and then Vivian Vance completely left, and then it was all just Mr. Mooney and Lucy. So the dynamic changed very greatly throughout the course of the series. Now, throughout seasons 1, 2, and 3, we have episodes filled with Vivian Vance and Lucille Ball, as well as their on-screen children and so forth. In my opinion, when the children kind of start leaving the course of the series and we have more of Lucy and Viv, it's just golden moments. It's just a reminder of I Love Lucy. There's a little bit missing because we don't have Desi, we don't have Bill Frawley's one-liners, which are greatly missed, but there is magic there. There is magic between these two that sadly comes to an end at the end of season 3. Now, why did this all happen? It's really abrupt what happened, and I'll get into the details of it. I'm going to briefly talk about the episode The Lucy Show, number 84, Lucy and the Disc Jockey. The reason is this was the last aired episode of the current format with Vivian Vance in it. Now, she had decided to leave the show unless she got more creative control of what was going on with the stories and the show in general. It was something that was very interesting because it was called The Lucy Show. Lucille Ball was the one who pretty much ran everything in that sense, and she did have that creative control, but Vivian did want a little bit more control than she had, which at this point she was just a co-star. She only had control essentially of her performances. Now, Lucille's advisors, this wasn't Lucille Ball, but her advisors warned her that if Vivian got what she wanted, that she will become her partner, that is her equal. And it was decided not to meet Vivian Vance's demands, and she in turn left the series. Now, this is the decision that Lucille Ball will forever regret to the end of her life. Without Vivian aboard, Lucille Ball truly toyed with the idea of ending the entire show then and there. Now, there was someone who decided to remain anonymous but left this really interesting anecdote regarding the separation of 2 great minds. Now, there was some sort of outside agenda interference between Lucille Ball and Vivian Vance. Lucille Ball was sold this idea of how Vivian wanted to be partners or nothing else. And it was told in a not great manner. Now, Lucille Ball came crying to this individual who decided to remain anonymous that day that they had the issue, wondering why Vivian would do that to her, why she'd want to elevate herself to Lucille Ball's equal. This individual said that Lucille felt very hurt and totally betrayed by Vivian, which is very sad considering this source later learned that Vivian's intentions were simply to become better paid. Yes, she just wanted more money, and she wanted to help make the show return to its former level of quality and have the stories revolve more around her if she was going to keep commuting to the set from Connecticut. Now remember, at this time, Vivian Vance was in her 4th marriage to John Dodd, who lived together in Connecticut, and they would have to fly, well, she would have to fly by herself back and forth from LA to Connecticut, her home, to film the show, and it was kind of taxing on her and her marriage. What was pretty unfortunate that at this time and this quote-unquote breakup, the two women, Lucille Ball and Vivian Vance, never really talked about it together. It was all done through agents and executives, and if they had, it would make sense that they would have agreed on something and Vivian would have returned to the show and there wouldn't have been an issue. And that's it, guys and gals. That explains what really happened between Vivian Vance and Lucille Ball. Now, the story doesn't end here. I can make more videos describing what happened, where she came in for different episodes of The Lucy Show where she would guest star, and they were actually pretty good. It was really great because their chemistry never really left, and so they were never really upset with each other at this point in their lives. It was just too difficult, too exhausting for her to fly back and forth week after week in order for her to film the show, so it just didn't work for her. But they did both miss each other, and the show suffered through the opinion of not just mine but other people who watched. Let me know your thoughts down below. Should this have played out as it did? Should Vivian Vance and Lucille Ball, should they have talked in person, hashed it out, figured it out, or they went through the executive and agent route, and maybe that created a few problems here and there. They were always still the best of friends, so that wasn't really an issue, but it did suffer. The art did suffer. The show did suffer. And I do want to know your thoughts in this show and what you thought about the series. We'll see you next time, guys and gals. Thank you so much for the support as always. And most importantly, be hopeful. Thank you so much to all my supporters on Patreon, especially my Diamond tier patrons: Tommy G, Citizen Kane 359, Grace U, Sally N, David D, and Ricky. You can find exclusive content on Patreon at different tiers. Go ahead and check it out, and thank you so much.